beautiful speech. I can see it now. You truly are a prince with the royal blood of a Saiyan.
What's going on, guys? MariK here, back with another Dragon Ball Super deck profile. We're 2 weeks away from the Colossal Warfare release and all of the nice new archetypes that will be in it. So we decided to play something a little more fun, a little less trying to be competitive with it. And what better way to do that than to go back to the very first deck that we ever built, the first deck that we ever actually won a tournament with, Android 17.
Ultimate Android? I'm standing right here.
Android 17's always been one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite antagonists, and even though he wasn't the ultimate evil at the end of the Android Cell saga, he's still one of the best characters in my opinion. The thing I like best about the leader too is that you reduce the energy cost of 17 and 18 by 1 in your hand, and you awaken at 6. A lot of people still don't seem to remember that, so I usually end up awakening by my second turn, where he awakens into Diabolico Duo Android 17 and 18. It still keeps the permanent that he reduces androids in your hand by 1, and when you have 4 or less life, all your 17 and 18 gain 5,000 power, including him. Now, even though he is 17 and 18, he only gets 5,000. Kind of a shame, but he'd be too broken otherwise. And then when he attacks, draw a card. Now, the leader itself is kind of underwhelming, but the fact that he gives all your 17 18s that extra 5,000 power is insane, because you got the 3-drop 15k crit Android 17-18 from the Crossworld set, which then become 2-drop 20k crits, and that's really, really painful, especially late game when you're trying to gain back some card advantage before your opponent destroys you. The first card in the deck is 3 Dr. Gero, Evil's Inventor.
Soon I will unleash Android 17 and 18 to destroy you all!
The reason we played 3 of him is because it was between playing 3 of him and 4 Create Android, or playing 3 Create Android and 4 Dr. Gero. Ultimately, we went with only 3 Gero because he only lets you pick one of the top 3, where Create Android lets you discard a card that is not going to be very beneficial and lets you draw 2 cards. So it allows you to dig into your deck a little more for the pieces that you need. Although Dr. Gero is fantastic when you play him. Look it up to 3 cards from the top of your deck and add any android, so that includes Cell if you wanted to, and I have added Cell this way. 9 times out of 10, though, for some reason, he always gives me Android 16. I know he designed Android 16 based off of his son, and I'm not complaining that he gives me Android 16. It's just kind of odd that it happens that way. The first Android 17 that we run 4 Energy Guard Android 17. He's a 3-cost 15,000 with blocker, and at the end of your turn you switch him to active mode. This card, believe it or not, has come in so clutch. He's a 20k blocker late game, and a 20k blocker that can also attack is pretty phenomenal when you're not talking about apes. And he's actually saved me so many games just because it doesn't take as much to combo to keep him alive, and then he's there for an attack and a block next turn as well. Definitely one of the best cards from the Tournament of Power set. Then we run 4 Dreadful Duo Android 17. He's a 3-cost 15,000 as well with critical, and his activate main says once per turn for 1 green energy. During that turn, if an opponent's battle card with energy cost 3 or less has been placed in the drop area from any area by one of your skills, choose 1 Android 18 with the energy cost of 3 or less from your hand and play it. Pretty decent ability, but I won't lie, I never really get to use it. I had an opportunity to use it one time, and I chose to play something else. Just the fact that it costs a green energy is kind of what slows it down. Not that that's bad, because you can play, you know, an Android 18 for 1 energy versus 2, but again, I never really had much opportunity to take advantage of it. Then we've got my favorite iteration of Android 17, Chilling Terror Android 17. He was a tournament pack promo from set 2. He's a 3-cost 15,000, and if your leader is an android, your opponent cannot draw cards when their leader card activates Awaken. They can still awaken, they just can't get the draw 2. Which a lot of people, when set 3 was coming out and you had all these leaders that they untapped 2 on Awaken instead of draw, were like, oh, Chilling Terror is going to be bad, you should not run him in androids or Cell or blah blah blah. But then you look at the way the meta has been, and it's all, for the most part, leaders that draw when they awaken. Like Super Saiyan 3 Goku, like Mass Saiyan, like Ginyu. It's crazy to think that this is not a good card to run. Obviously, he won't be great against all decks, and if I was playing against a leader that untapped on Awaken, he would get sided out. But I see no reason not to run him. He's just a great card. Best art that we have for any android, and he worked really well during this last event, as all the opponents that I played against, all their leaders, had draw on Awaken, and they all hated this card being on the board. And having a single card that forces your opponent to deal with it just to get it off the board so they can get that draw too, uses up their resources that they could then use for your more threatening cards. Now for the second half of the android pair, we ran 2 Twin Sister Android 18.
Rules. Who needs them?
Oh no! Look out!
She's a 3 cost 15,000. When this card attacks, you can place a card from your hand in your drop area and choose an Android 17 in your battle area, switch it to active mode. So it allows you to get extra attacks in. Not that they're bad. I don't really use their abilities as much as I would like to. Mainly because of some of the other focuses we have in the deck as well. But it's definitely a good card. We only ran 2 because, to me, I would rather run some of the other Android 18s that we have. And we didn't run any of the 17 because, well, we were already at 12 Android 17s, and I felt like that was enough. So the Android 18's in there. And it's cool because we could always attack with the Android 17, trigger his ability for 1 green energy, play a Twin Sister, and then attack with the Twin Sister. Her auto activates and untaps the crit Android 17 to swing again. Then we have Dreadful Duo Android 18. She's our other 3 cost crit. And once per turn, if an opponent's battle card with an energy cost of 4 or more has been placed in the drop area from any area by one of your skills, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 3 or less and KO it. Her ability is really not as good. I don't think. I like Android 17's a bit better because it brings out an 18. It gives you more board presence, gives you another attack. Not that hers isn't bad, but because it's limited to energy cost of 3 or less, it doesn't really help you as much as the Android 17's ability. Then we've got my favorite Android 18, Exterminating Energy Android 18. She's a 5 cost 20,000 power with double strike, and when this card attacks a leader card, your opponent chooses a card in their hand and places it in the drop area. I know a lot of people don't like the 5 cost 17 18s. I really like the 18. Discarding a card from your opponent's hand before they can combo is really good. In fact, I actually used this past weekend to pitch a super combo out of my opponent's hand before attacking him for exact game because he was at 2 life. It's just a good ability, and it goes great with the Android 16 super combo, as they both rip cards from your opponent's hand. I like this card. It's a great finisher, and 4 cost 25,000 double strike is not bad at all. Then we run the final piece of the puzzle, Growing Evil Lifeform Cell.
Delightful. What a momentous occasion. A day for the history books, to be sure. The completion of my being will mark the dawning of a new age.
He's 3 cost 15,000 with Union Absorb, so you place an Android 17 from your hand under him, choose up to 1 cell with energy cost 5 or less from your hand and place it on top of him, and then shuffle your deck afterwards. What I like about the cell, and what a lot of people don't like, and I agree somewhat that it is a bit unfair that you can just go from the first form to the second form to the third form for no energy cost, is that it has no energy cost. However, you do still have to lose 2 cards from your hand. I guess 1 technically, because the second form of Cell does draw you a card. But I really like the Cell chain. We only run 3 because I didn't want Cell to be the main focus of the deck. And we were running 2 at one point a while ago, and 2 just doesn't cut it. Then we've got Cell's second form, Evolving Evil Lifeform Cell. He's a 5 cost 20,000, and you union absorb him by placing an android 18 from in your hand under this card, and you search for one cell from your deck and place it on top of this card of any level whatsoever. So if you really wanted to, you could get a second evolving evil to destroy another one of your opponent's cards. If you had the resources and you had the evolving evils left in your deck, you could just keep doing it to kind of clear their board. It's not a bad strategy either. I never really had a need to do that though. He has double strike, and when you play him with Union, you draw a card and you choose a battle card and KO it. Any energy cost, that's really nice. Cell's just a great combination of cards. Then we have Cell's final and arguably best form, Perfect Force Cell.
Now, you die!
He's a 7 cost 30,000. You could evolve him for 2 green and 4 other, but again, you're rarely ever going to play him outside of Union. And when you do play this card, if your leader card is an android, your opponent must choose cards in their hand until there are only 3 remaining, and the rest get sent to the drop area. Now, what's cool about him is if you ever got to the point, you could just hard cast him. You could evolve him onto a regular cell, or you could hardcast him for 7. As long as you have an android leader, his effect will still go off, which is nice, but honestly, games really never get past 5 energy at this point. But it is nice to have that extra option in case you got to the point that you needed to actually be able to play cell on 7 energy. Then we've got our super combo, Stout-Hearted Android 16. When you combo, if your leader card's a green android and you're 4 or less life, your opponent chooses a card from the hand and discards it, and then this card gains 10,000 power for the duration of the turn. It's a little bit different because instead of you drawing, your opponent has to discard. Either way, though, you're keeping card advantage, and I like the fact that you make your opponent discard because you could draw a card, sure, but you could also force them to discard a crucial card, such as a super combo or something else that they really didn't want to let go of. Honestly, I think Android 16 is one of the best super combo cards we have, and it goes just fantastic with combining it with Perfect Form Cell. Another card that goes great with Cell's Perfect Form is Relentless Destruction Mira. You overwhelm him for 3, and when you do play him using overwhelm, your opponent chooses a card in their hand and places it in the drop area. So it's really nice when you play Perfect Cell, drop their hand to 3, then play Relentless Mira, drop their hand to 2, and then you can even drop your super combos to either drop another card from the hand or just wipe their hand out completely. Really great combination and really good way to finish off your opponent. This is the only overwhelm we play in the main deck, as I saw no other reason to play anything else. Then for our extra cards, we play 4 Create Android.
Those are the blueprints for my ultimate android.
For 1 green energy, if your leader card's an android, draw 2 cards, then place 1 card from your hand in the drop area. So essentially, between the card you discard and this card, you gain 0 card advantage. That is one thing that I do like about Dr. Shiro, is he does gain you a free card, but this does let you discard. So if you had either the 2nd or 3rd cell form in your hand and it just wasn't doing you any good, it's a free card to discard with this ability, but this just lets you dig deeper into your deck to get your combo pieces if you need them. Still might end up swapping them out down to 3 for 4 Dr. Giro, but really not sure, to be honest. Then we've got our Negate, 4 Speedy Surprise Attacks. We've pretty much never use the ability to discard a card and blow up a 3-drop. It's usually just a 1-cost negate that we play. However, I can see where the effect might be good, especially if you were playing against like veggies or something. I may have used it like once, I think, during this weekend, but otherwise, I just don't like discarding a card for the effect, and usually there's nothing that great to hit to begin with that we couldn't just KO by other means. Now, once set 4 drops, I'm not really sure what I plan to do. I might take out the Dr. Giros and put in 4 of the 1-drop critical Gohan, or I may even take out the Speedy Surprise Attacks or some kind of combination between those, as that will allow me to awaken myself if my opponent is unwilling to do so. And 15k crit coming at your opponent, they're either going to lose that life or they're going to lose cards in their hand to prevent themselves from losing that life. So either way, it's a win-win for me. Round 1, we got matched up with a classic Beerus deck, running the new 5-drop Beerus and such. However, it was a little more classic than I would have liked, running objections and more stally stuff. So it wasn't as aggressive as my build, and honestly, you're never really going to get to the point where you can play the 12-drop Whis, or let alone Beerus' ability to auto-win for 16 energy. The only reason I see playing Beerus is for the 5-drop and for the leader's abilities to KO cards. Luckily, I can play my androids for 2 energy, but on the board there's still 3 energy, so until that Beerus leader is awakened, its ability can't KO any of my battle cards whatsoever, with the exception of the 1-drop Dr. Gero. Round 2, we ended up playing against a buddy of mine. He was using one of my teammates' Khalifa Veggies deck. The Khalifa leader is just so gross, and it awakens so fast whether you want it to or not, and it's going to be even worse now that we're getting the new GT Trunks and the new Crit Gohan as well, so that's just going to make that deck even more nasty to play against. Veggies in general are usually really annoying. However, between Perfect Cell dropping cards out of their hand and then using the Miras and the Android 16s to wipe out what was left, it really didn't leave him a whole lot of options to be able to do much to us, so we took that one relatively well. And then the last round, we played against a friend of mine playing the red aggro Mass Saiyan deck. Mass Saiyan is just an annoying leader to play against, because rarely ever are you not going to get both the critical and the 5,000. I think once he didn't get the critical, and I think maybe once he didn't get the 5k boost, but either way, the leader itself just puts a lot of pressure on the board, and then in combination with the battle cards that have crit and the Kabas with double strike, it's just a lot of pressure really early game. If you can stall them out, their late game is not as oppressive, but it's really hard to do that with as much as pressure as they can put on you with the leader alone. And then with set 4, again, that crit Trunks and that crit Gohan are going to make a fucking red, green, black Mass Saiyan deck just terrifying to play against. We did end up getting that one. We pretty much just flooded the board with the Android 17 blockers and the Android 17-18 crit attackers, and that gave us enough defense to keep ourselves alive and enough pressure to have to force him to just drop his hand to prevent all of that crit damage from going through. Our side deck was prepared to handle a little bit of everything. We have 2 Mass Saiyan, the Mysterious Warrior. It's a good overwhelm card that you can just drop to KO a few battle cards. Fantastic veggie killer, and 20k double strike is not anything to scoff at. We ran 2 Expanding Energy Android 17s. In case we played against any mirror matches, or we played against any Brawly or Gotenks players, when he attacks, you draw until you have 4 cards in your hand, so he allows you to get build up your hand advantage again, which is really good against those decks in particular. Then, in case we felt like we were being out aggroed, we ran 3 Destined Deed Krillin. He's a free blocker when you are awakened, because he says if Android 18's in your leader battle or leader area, you can play him from your hand without paying the energy cost. So if you don't have one on the board and you're awakened, you can still play it for free. If you do have one on the board, you can play it at any time. Free blockers are just really good at this particular time, and they're a really, really good way to counter aggro decks as well. Probably one of my favorite techs that we have side decked, and something that I've been considering adding to the main deck as well, is Son Kamehameha. It's a 1-cost green. It says choose one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost larger than or equal to the opponent's amount of total energy and KO it. I feel like this card is severely underrated, and that's why I feel like I want to add it to my main deck. For 1 energy, you can KO anything on the board, and it just has to have energy larger than or equal to their total energy. So you're going to be able to easily KO those battle cards that evolve or union early game, like the UI Gokus or the Universe 7 Goku, Cell, of course. I think it's just an underrated card, and I might end up main decking it. I haven't decided yet. Then lastly, we run 4 Enrage Gohan Awakening. This would be again against decks that we felt like were getting the upper hand on us offensively, and this is one of the few options to actually be able to stop and kill the Secret Rare Tournament of Power Goku, which one of our teammates was running that deck. over this past weekend, so this would have been a great way to go ahead and counter that, as well as the free blockers. Alright, well that's going to wrap it up for this deck profile. I had a lot of fun getting to play one of my old favorite decks. I've always got androids together when I just want to have some more relaxed fun. I know a lot of people hate Cell. I don't think Cell is as bad as some people make it out to be, although he is somewhat problematic with as easy as you can get him out. But overall, it's just a fun deck for me to be able to play androids in. Cell isn't the focus of the deck for me. It is actually getting to play androids, and there were a lot of instances over the weekend where I chose not to Cell chain just because it wouldn't have been as beneficial as to just sit there and pick away at them with double strike or with crit. But if you guys enjoyed this profile, if you guys are big Android fans like I am, or you just like to be degenerate with Cell like I do as well, make sure you hit that like button down below for us. You know, we appreciate the support. We appreciate all of our subscribers as well. We are over 800 subscribers now. We're getting so close to hitting that 1,000 and getting our partnership back. And it just means so much to us that you've been willing to support us on this journey. We're going to go ahead and get the frick out of here, though. And we'll see you guys in the next video.